Remember when the world moved just a little slower? When every neighborhood had its own rhythm. The clang of the milk truck at dawn, the whistle of the iceman, the soft thump of a newspaper hitting your porch. Life wasn't just lived, it was delivered, hand to hand, face to face. Back then, jobs existed that we can barely imagine today. Jobs that shaped our mornings, our homes, even how we said hello. They weren't glamorous, but they were real, and they made America feel like a place where everyone had a role, even if it was just polishing shoes on a busy corner. Today, we're looking at 10 forgotten American jobs that don't exist anymore, a tribute to the quiet workers who kept life running one step at a time. The Milkman. Back before supermarkets stayed open till midnight, before plastic jugs and cold aisles, there was the Milkman. Every morning, rain or shine, he'd pull up in his white truck with glass bottles clinking in wooden crates. He wore a cap, a uniform, and always knew your family's order by heart. 2% for mom, whole milk for the kids, maybe a pint of cream for coffee. He didn't just deliver milk, he delivered trust. If you forgot to leave out empty bottles, he'd still come back tomorrow. No invoice, no op, just a notebook and a nod. The job started fading in the 1960s. Supermarkets got bigger. Refrigerators got better. Families started buying milk in bulk. And soon, the soft beep of the delivery truck became a memory. Now, seeing a milk bottle on the porch feels like stepping into a dream. But once, it was just Tuesday. The elevator operator. Imagine stepping into an elevator and not pressing a button. Instead, a man in a crisp uniform smiled and said, "Which floor, ma'am?" That was the elevator operator. A common sight in department stores, office buildings, and fancy hotels from the 1920s to the 1960s. These weren't just workers. They were ambassadors of courtesy. They knew regulars by name, helped carry packages, and even cracked jokes to lighten your day. In grand places like Macy's or the Waldorf Astoria, operators wore gloves and stood perfectly still, guiding the cab with a gentle hand. It was a job built on dignity and service. But as technology advanced, buttons replaced people. Pushing 8 yourself felt faster and cheaper. By the 1970s, most operators were gone. Now, silence fills the elevator. But once, someone welcomed you to your floor. The Lamplighter. Before streetlights turned on by themselves, before motion sensors and timers, there was a lamplighter. At dusk, he walked the neighborhood with a long pole, lighting each gas lamp one by one. In the morning, he'd return to snuff them out. His footsteps were part of the rhythm of town life. Steady, dependable, almost poetic. These men worked in cities big and small. Some wore coats with brass buttons, others just a hat and gloves. Their job wasn't hard, but it mattered. A lit street meant safety. A dark corner could mean danger. Electric lights changed everything. By the 1930s, most lamps were automatic. The last lamplighters retired quietly. Their poles hung up like old fishing rods. Today, a few historic towns keep the tradition alive, not because they need to, but because it feels right, like lighting a candle instead of flipping a switch. The ice delivery man. Before every fridge had a freezer, families relied on blocks of ice to keep food cold, and that ice came from the iceman. He'd arrive early, often before sunrise, with huge tongs and thick gloves. From his horse-drawn wagon, later a truck, he'd lift a 50-pound block of ice and slide it into your icebox. Kids would gather to watch, hoping for a shaving off the side to suck on. The iceman might wink and toss them a chunk. He knew how much ice each house needed. More in summer, less in winter. But by the 1950s, electric refrigerators took over. No more drips on the kitchen floor. No more waiting for the knock on the back door. Now, making ice is as easy as pressing a button. But once, keeping things cool was someone's full-time job. The telephone operator. Before dialing a number, before cell phones and speed dial, you picked up the phone and said, "Number, please?" To a woman with a headset and a switchboard, telephone operators connected calls by hand. Plug here, connect there. Long distance? She'd patch you through. sometimes listening to make sure the line stayed clear. They worked in rows of desks, in bright rooms filled with clicking sounds. Many were women, young, polite, and precise. They memorized numbers, calmed angry callers, and even helped during emergencies. When rotary dials and automated systems arrived in the 1960s, the need faded. Direct dialing was faster, cheaper, but it lost something too, that human voice saying, "I'll get you through." Now, we press buttons and talk to robots. But once, someone helped you reach the person you loved. The Shoeshine Boy. On city corners, near train stations and office buildings, you'd find a small stand with a wooden box, brushes, and tins of polish. That was the Shoeshine Boy. Most were teens, some as young as 12, working after school or on weekends. For a quarter, they'd buff your shoes to a mirror shine, chatting about baseball or the weather. It wasn't just about clean shoes. It was about pride. A good shine meant you were ready for work, for church, for life. Businessmen tipped extra, knowing that kid was saving for college or helping his family. As casual dress grew popular in the 1970s, fewer men wore dress shoes. Sneakers and loafers didn't need shines. The stands disappeared one by one. Today, a shoe shine is a luxury. But once, it was a rite of passage for both the shiner and the shined. The Linotype Operator. In every newspaper office, behind closed doors filled with ink and noise, sat the Linotype Operator. His machine was massive, a keyboard that melted metal into lines of type. One wrong key, and the whole line had to be remade. It was fast, dangerous work, done under hot lights and tight deadlines. These men and a few women built the pages of your daily paper, word by molten word. You never saw them, but their hands shaped the news you read. By the 1970s, computers and photo typesetting took over. The clatter of the linotype fell silent. The machines were scrapped or put in museums. Now, news is typed on laptops in minutes. But once, headlines were cast in hot metal, one letter at a time. The Fuller Brush Man. You may have heard the name. The Fuller Brush Man, a traveling salesman who knocked on your door with a sample case full of brushes, soaps, and cleaning supplies. He wasn't just selling, he was visiting. He knew your kids' names, remembered your dog's birthday, and always had a joke ready. People looked forward to his visits, not because they needed another dish brush, but because he treated them like friends. Started in the 1900s, the Fuller Brush Company built a network of thousands of these men. They traveled town to town, earning a living one doorstep at a time. But shopping changed. Supermarkets stocked everything. Then came online ordering. Door-to-door sales faded. Now, strangers at the door make us nervous. But once, one knock meant a friendly face and a fresh bar of soap. The soda jerk. Step into any drugstore in the 1940s or 50s, and you'd hear the fizz of syrup, the splash of soda water, and the call of the soda jerk. He stood behind the marble counter, twirling a spoon, building egg creams, phosphates, and cherry cokes with flair. Some spun the spoon on their finger. Others flipped the lid of the syrup, pumped like a magician. It was more than a drink. It was a show. Kids saved allowance money just to sit at the counter and watch. But fast food chains rose. Drive-thrus replaced counters. Pharmacies stopped serving Sundays. Now, soda comes from a fountain behind a register. But once, it came with a smile and a spin. The Pinsetter. Before automatic bowling alleys, before the loud were machines resetting pins. There were pinsetters, mostly teenagers. They sat in small booths above the lanes, watching bowlers roll. When the ball crashed into the pins, the pinsetter scrambled down, reset the 10 pins by hand, and returned the ball. It was fast, physical work. One night could mean resetting thousands of pins. Mistakes meant angry bowlers. But tips could add up, especially on Friday nights. In the 1950s, AMF invented the automatic pinsetter. By the 1970s, nearly all alleys had switched. The booths were boarded up. Now, the sound of pins falling is followed by gears, not footsteps. But once, someone climbed down just to give you your next turn. These jobs didn't just disappear. They made way for progress. Faster, easier, more efficient ways of living. But sometimes, in their place, we lost a little warmth, a little connection. We didn't just buy milk. We waved the man who brought it. We didn't just call a number. We trusted a voice to connect us. Life moves on. But remembering these forgotten jobs reminds us of who we used to be. Neighbors, not just consumers. Workers who knew your name, not just your username. So next time you pour a glass of milk in the fridge or press a button on an elevator, take a second. Think of the hands that came before. And if this trip down memory lane meant something to you, go ahead and like this video. Share a memory in the comments. Who knows, maybe your granddad was a pinsetter, or your aunt was a telephone operator. Don't forget to subscribe, because every week, we're opening the photo album again, one story, one memory, one forgotten job at a time.